Welcome to The Real Pro-Choice, where you will hear stories of miraculous healings and restorations. The journey through adoption can sometimes feel like you're on a roller coaster. Find out how my guests navigated through these ups and downs.
The choices we make affect our lives. Sometimes our choices not only affect our own lives, but everyone connected to us. Maybe even those we're not aware of. God says, choose life, so that you and your descendants may live. Join Donna Grisham and her guests as they share the choices they've made and how Jesus has set them free. Next on The Real Pro-Choice.
Welcome to the show. I'm here today with Farrell and Sharon Galloway. Welcome, Farrell and Sharon.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks
Great
for
to be
having
here.
us.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. We are associate lead pastors at New Life Christian Fellowship in Jacksonville, Florida. We've been there for 11 years, and we've been married for 15. Before that, we worked with a parachurch ministry known as The Call under Lou Engle, and traveled around America and helped host and be a part of giant gatherings of prayer. But we're now super happy in Jacksonville with our family and our church community.
Good. And you're a mother.
I am finally home with those babies. We're not really babies much anymore, 8 and 4, but yes, that is where I am. That's the season that the Lord still has me in right now, is home, supporting, homework, school, car line again. But I do love it. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Well, we're going to go back when you two met. Tell the story about how you two met.
Sure. Sharon and I had crossed paths over a number of years in different settings here or there with churches and stuff like that. But then actually in the Charlotte area, I was working with The Call, and she came and started volunteering with the ministry. And there was just something that was 100% different in my heart and mind with her than there was other young ladies that I had been around. And some of my spiritual dads at the time started saying, like, there's just something different. Like, you should really, because I was, at that time, was so busy in ministry, traveling like crazy. And I thought, this is terrible timing to start a relationship. And I'm, all over America right now. And nonetheless, like, that little thing kept pulling in my heart. And so we started dating and got married a year and a week from our first date.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't waste time. Once I was settled in, I was like, I got to lock this amazing woman down, because I was like, there's just something phenomenal about her. So.
Yeah. Well, you wanted children, and y'all, were trying for 2 years to have children, and what happened?
What's interesting is even when we were dating, we had conversations about growing our family, what that could look like. During the dating, you're seeing what the expectations are, if this is a good match. And even in our dating, we talked about adoption as just being something that we thought was really special and unique. And even at that time, the idea of it wasn't foreign. It was very normal. It was very comfortable. And my grandfather was adopted, and I grew up knowing that and him kind of talking about it openly. And so I don't know if just having like that dialogue through my whole childhood of knowing he had come from an adoptive family and an idea of what that meant and how he loved his adoptive family. He loved his biological family. I don't know where that kind of came from, but it was important then, and thankfully so, because it would be important in the near future for us. Yeah. But that's just kind of one of those things. I don't know how many people touch on that during their dating experience, but we certainly did. And that
was in the back of your mind, even in the beginning of
Yeah, it was always there. Now, we had no idea that would be the only way at this point in time we would end up growing our family.
So when you say the only way, there was something that after 2 years of trying to have children, you realized y'all weren't able to have children.
Yeah. So we had just relocated from Kansas City to Jacksonville. Had insurance for the first time in our lives, was getting everything checked out. And it came up during one of my wellness visits, are you trying to become pregnant? Is that on the radar? And it was. And so I had a conversation with my primary care person at the time, and they referred me to like a fertility clinic to start that process. And of course, Farrell would be a part of that. And I don't think at the time that we were prepared, like, or suspicious is probably the better word. I don't think we were suspicious that there was a serious case of infertility at all. I think it was more like, oh, maybe we need a little bit of help or something like that. So, but it was, I mean, it was very, very quickly that they did some tests and stuff and determined that that was something that was going to be very, very difficult and challenging for us. And it all happened very fast. Yeah, where we were given Farrell was given a diagnosis of what they could determine in his body, and we were very kind of quickly and very abruptly in this position of making some really strong pivots. Do we just wait and see if the miraculous does happen and we do become pregnant? Or
Now, what were you diagnosed with?
Sure. At that time, I had a testosterone deficiency. My body was producing testosterone on a lower scale than a postmenopausal woman. And the doctor said that in that exact way to me as a guy in my 30s. That was like heartbreaking. That was like earth-shattering. Because it had reflected in other areas of my life as well, extreme fatigue, at times like inability to focus, like all of those things were symbols of that issue in my body. And I just thought it was life. I thought it was the busyness of my schedule, traveling. Because the first couple of years of our marriage, I was on the road hundreds of days a year, traveling, flying, hundreds of thousands of miles for these events. And so I thought I'm just overworked. But then I get in and find out that's actually not the case. I have a major medical situation in my body. And so it was really like off-putting, shocking. It did two things. One, it broke my heart because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is my thing. Like this isn't my wife's thing. Sharon's body was in great health. I was like, all of this rests in me. It wasn't even 50-50. It was 100% and zero. And so for me, I was like, this is something I have to deal with. And I remember like having to like step up and start meeting with doctors and all of what was going to need to be done. And there's all these side effects of getting synthetic testosterone and going through all like blood tests and all these things that I had to go through. And I remember like being in the midst of that process, and I was at a men's meeting at our church, and they challenged you to go home and ask your spouse, like, what's one thing they're really proud of you for? And I'm a full-time minister, and I thought, I'm going to go home and ask my wife, what are you proud of? And she's going to be like, it's you as a pastor, it's you as a counselor. I went home and asked my wife, like, hey, what's one thing you're really proud of? And without hesitation, Sharon looked at me and she said, the journey you're willing to walk through for us to have a family. And I lost it. Like I cried. I cried so hard because in my mind, of course, I was like, I'll do what I need to do, but I had no idea that my wife had saw the value in what I was going through for that process.
And a lot of times, infertility, everybody looks towards the women, that it's the woman, and for a man to, deal with this, it's good to have the man's perspective on what, so. So what happened after that?
So we were presented with our options as far as the fertility side. And so, they were talking to us about IVF. And honestly, it happened really quickly in our hearts. I knew, how do I even put this? I remember having a conversation with the Lord where he was asking me questions because I think I was trying to figure it out. And infertility, whether it's in the man and the woman, everything about it is painful. Just calling to make the appointment is painful, let alone the things involved in it. But I remember the Lord asking me, are you wanting to be pregnant or are you wanting to parent? And I was like, what a good question. What is it that my heart is really yearning for most? And it was parenting. You know, I think every woman wonders and is curious, like, what is it like to conceive and be pregnant, and give birth or whatever. But in my heart, the bigger thing was, I want to parent. Like, I want life in this house. I want to grow a family with my husband. And so the idea of adopting as opposed to choosing a different fertility plan was pretty easy and a pretty quick decision we were able to make. Yeah.
Yeah, and once we set our hearts on that journey, you then have all the other things that come up with that.
Right.
You have the need of the finances. You have, questions being asked of, in your adoption, do you want girls, boys, both? Are you open to all races? And all of a sudden now, within a matter of a month or two, the Lord has opened our hearts to this journey. And now there's all of this part of that as well. And you have to sit down and ask those questions okay, Lord, where are we with this? Where are we with that? And once we started in on it, it was just amazing. We saw the hand of God over and over and over and over.
Okay, this story has so much more to it. We'll be right back after this.
God values all life, even from conception. Donna Grisham and the vision of her ministry, Journeys of Choice, is to empower women through counseling, parenting classes, and by providing alternate options to choose life for themselves and their unborn child. With prayer and dependence on God, Journeys of Choice is committed to saving the lives of unborn children, while at the same time offering courage, assistance, and healing. For more information, visit journeysofchoice.org.
Welcome back. I'm here with Farrell and Sharon Galloway, and we're just listening to their story. Okay, Sharon, y'all had found out that you weren't able to have children. So what was your next move?
So, we decided we're going to grow our family through adoption. We started having some conversations with people that we trusted. There was a really great referral out there to a local agency, and that's the one that we applied with and started working with. So it's so wild looking back how it all happened so slowly and so quickly at the same time, because I remember it was summer. We were youth pastors for our church at the time, and so we had gone on one of the camp trips. And I remember getting a call back while we were away that our application had been accepted. They were going to start scheduling our home study process, and we were kind of officially on our way to adopting. We're committed now. We are on this road, And so I'm trying to think of how long it took. It was months. It was maybe 6 months. And then we were matched with an expectant birth mother. And geared up and excited to welcome that baby into our lives, and did the appointments and the meetings and all of that. And then she ended up choosing to parent that child, which,
So what did that do to you, both of you? What did that do? What was I know there's some strong emotions, because your mind and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be a parent, I'm going to be able to parent.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like it's snatched from you.
Yeah, it was devastating. The disappointment was devastating. I think having to share that disappointment with so many other people that were excited was just as painful. It's interesting because on one hand, I wasn't upset at all that this young girl chose to parent. So I'm I feel frustrated, I feel disappointed, but I'm also but this is your baby. Of course you can parent. Good for you.
You still had compassion for her.
Oh my gosh,
Understanding
absolutely.
for her.
We were in our hearts, like going through our level of grief over the fact that we had done baby showers and we had done all this different stuff and had a room ready, and there wasn't a baby there now. I had ultrasounds pictures on my computer at work. We had picked names and shared them, and now that's not our child. And so it's like you're like racing to this finish line, and 3 steps shy, all of a sudden they call the race and it's over. But there's no end, there's no completion.
And I think as believers, like, it felt really confusing. And I think as I get older and I mature in the Lord, it's less like this. But I think at that time, I remember thinking, I'm so confused. Like, if the Lord is for adoption and for us, and if the Lord is encouraging us, if the Lord is doing all this, how can it not go the way I thought it would go, and this still be of God or still be good? And then I think, like, that's the amazing part, is because, and I remember in that moment not knowing, but.
So after that one, what was your next step that you took?
Well, I mean, we basically waited for a brand new match. We were kind of back.
How long after that one was the second match?
Okay, so there wasn't a second match after that. So it
Which
was
to
about.
us was a total God thing, because in our hearts we weren't sure we were ready to like go back through this long journey again.
Okay.
And so then the Lord did a suddenly for us.
Yeah, so what happened was, our plan was, okay, we're now waiting for our profile to be shown, for another expectant mother to come in and to match with us. But what happened was, the agency called one day and they were like, how would you guys feel about having a girl? And we were like, great, you know? And they're like, okay, so then we'll see you here at 4. I was like, why would you see us at 4?
Yeah.
And they're like, we have an expectant mother coming in to do placement today at 4, and we think you all would be a great match for receiving placement of this child. So one day I wake up, it's a normal day, I'm loading the dishwasher, and 4 hours later I'm meeting my daughter, this child that I've waited for all this time, and just like that.
You meet your daughter.
Yeah, so this situation was completely different because this mom had already given birth, had parented for a few days, and then decided, no, placement is what's best
So the
for my
baby
child.
was
And
a
so-
couple of days
yeah,
old.
Yeah, she was 7 days old.
7 days, yeah.
when
And we come into the agency and we're meeting with our team, and we can hear on the other side of the wall, we can hear her fussing and crying, and like your heart is like,
Crazy.
you know, going through all of
So
that.
tell me, this is exciting. So tell me your first reaction when you first meet your daughter for the first time, your first daughter. for the
So
first
interesting. I think it was different for both of us. It's interesting because I remember just thinking she was the tiniest thing I'd ever seen. She was probably less than 5 pounds. She was tiny. I even knew, like, the moment I held her, that she was sweet. She was just the sweetest thing. But what's interesting is, at that time, but I couldn't help but think about, like, her future. And I knew that this woman who had given her life and made this choice had also gone through the most difficult thing of her life, right? And so I instantly was like, I love her, therefore I love her mom also. And so she had signed consent and had planned to leave. But I remember looking at my daughter and being like, I have to see her, and I have to thank her, and I have to be able to answer questions someday for this girl. And so I said to our agent, I want to go see her, ask her if we can see her, and she allowed us that. And so most from that encounter, I remember thinking of the future, and I remember thinking of this other woman. And I'm just so thankful that she gave us that. As scared as she was, as nervous as she was, it was special. Everything about it was just really powerful and really special.
So are you still in touch with her? Was it an open adoption, or how was?
No, we don't have an open adoption. You know, and I have to believe that the Lord knew that wouldn't be part of our story because I felt so compelled to just lay eyes on her.
Right.
And I'm so thankful because now I can tell my daughter who has questions like, oh, your fingernails. Do you know that the shape of your fingernails look just like your mom? Like, because I remember seeing her. And no, we don't. And we are open, will forever be open. And that's the interesting thing with adoption is sometimes there's hard lines and sometimes there's totally not. So we believe the Lord to move forward with our children and their stories as they grow and mature also.
We have more of the story. We'll be right back right after this.
I invite you to visit journeysofchoice.org and get this book. You may be in a situation where you are at a crossroads between the choice of life and the choice of death. Life may have stopped for you, and you are fearful of what your future holds. Abortion, rape, adoption, and more are covered in Donna Grisham's book, Journeys of Choice. Donna shares her own story, along with 14 additional inspiring testimonies from both men and women who were at a crossroads. Each one shares the choices they made and how those choices affected their lives and the lives of others. Their words offer wisdom for making godly choices in the midst of trauma and crisis, and bring hope, healing, and supernatural redemption to anyone with a broken past. As you read these pages, you will see for yourself the truth behind choice and the effects of the choices we make. See how God wants to intervene in your situation and change the course of your life forever. Find hope and healing for those who have been faced with an unplanned pregnancy. Know that God has not left you and wants to bring hope to your hopelessness. Every testimony in this book, Journeys of Choice, will bring healing and hope to the brokenhearted, revealing what was meant for evil and harm, and show you how God can turn it around for good and blessings. This heartfelt book will inspire, motivate, encourage, and assist you on the road to recovery that will bring a wellspring of hope into your life and others. Get your copy today.
Welcome back. I'm here with Farrell and Sharon Galloway. And wow, if you didn't see the last segment, you need to go back because I'm telling you, they have an amazing story. Sharon, we were just talking about you seeing your little girl for the first time. You got to speak to the mother. Now take your little girl home.
Right.
You go start your journey,
Yeah.
and then.
Well, one, I want to say it was everything I hoped it would be. You know, for women who want to parent, it is worth it, and it has been everything I wanted it to be, even in all the difficulties. So a couple years go by, we decide we want to grow our family again. We choose a different agency. We wait for a match. We do have a match, another boy, and very, very, very similar situation. The appointments, the anticipation, and then she also chooses to parent. So we've just experienced that again. And the wild thing is, and I remember the agency saying, this has never happened. We've never met anyone who's had almost like the same thing happened twice, which was only 4 weeks after that unsuccessful placement, they called with a girl also born that was ready to receive placement same day. So it was just wild to have such paralleling experiences in adoption.
Now, you adopted another little girl. Okay. There's a story behind that, too.
Sure, there is. In the midst of us being matched with a little boy, our then 4 going on 5-year-old daughter started telling Sharon and I, no, it's not a boy, it's a girl, and her skin's like mine. And then she started calling her by a name. She started saying Quincy or Quinny. And she would draw family pictures and she would ask how to spell it and all this different kind of stuff. And we were like, okay, but in our minds, we're like, but it's a boy. And she's like, it's a girl. And she was just very like set, like it's a girl.
wow.
Her skin's like mine, da da da. And she would call her, Quinny or Quincy the whole time, all along the way. Well, then the agency calls and they said, we have a baby here, but the birth mom has one request, and that's that you keep the name she picked. And so we're like, okay, that could be anything under the sun. And then they tell us the name is Quinn. And so literally our 4-year-old has been prophesying her little sister's coming. And unbeknownst to us, Quinn had been in an incubator. She'd been born super early and was in the NICU for weeks while our older daughter was literally calling her by name, telling us that she was out there and coming. And so, we journey into this part of it then, and we find this out, and we're just like, oh my gosh, Lord, this is unbelievable. This is amazing.
Crazy. It was just ordained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was,
my God.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. But there was one day, Donna, when everything had fallen through, and Sharon and I were having a really tough day, and she comes out of the bedroom and walks into the living room, and I was laying on the couch watching an NFL game, and she says to me, and when they pulled Daniel out of the lion's den, they didn't find a wound or a scratch anywhere on his body because he had fully trusted God. And immediately my heart just like lit up, and I sat up on the couch and I said, what? And Sharon goes, the Lord just told me. And they pulled Daniel out of the lion's den and didn't find a wound or a scratch because he had trusted God. And Sharon goes, I think that's what God's saying to us right now. If we trust him, we won't get wounded in this. And I said, okay, we do it. And literally within weeks, the next door was opened, and our daughter was right in the prophetic nature the Lord had given her and calling her sister forth. And we have our second daughter, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
Both
And
the
your
girls.
daughters are how old?
8 and 4.
8 and 4. Wow, that is so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want one of you to look into the camera and just talk to that person that they really have that desire, that couple, they have that desire to adopt. And they're questioning because they've heard stories like yours, and they're questioning, is it worth all that I'm going to have to go through? Just speak to that one person.
Yeah,
You'll look
absolutely.
into
I would 100% tell you it's worth it. Like any journey that you're going to walk through, there's difficulty, there's stretching, right? But what you're doing is literally what we've all gone through. We're all adopted by the Lord into the kingdom. He had one natural son, and the rest of us are adopted into that family. And as you're pursuing this as a single person, as you're pursuing this as a couple, just know the Lord is so for adoption, and he is with you in this journey. There may be tears of pain, and there may be tears of joy. The end result will be beautiful.
Yes. Now, could you just pray?
Sure.
Real quick, pray.
Absolutely. Lord, I pray over every couple and person out there that has the desire to adopt, that you would come in and bring peace that passes understanding, provision from open windows in heaven, that you would pour out over them everything they need from beginning to end in this journey for success. In Jesus' name, amen.
In Jesus' name. Thank you, Farrell,
Yeah.
and thank you,
Thank you,
Sharon,
Donna.
for
Thank you.
joining me. And thank you for joining us today. Visit my website, journeysofchoice.org. I would love to hear from you. See you next week on The Real Pro Choice.